Hello everybody! Today we are going to be spilling the tea, or more like spilling the coffee, because I'm much more of a coffee person than a tea person. So we are spilling the coffee. That sounds very lame, but we will make it work. So we are going to be reviewing two palettes. The one palette that we're going to be reviewing is the Mini Controversy palette with Shane and Jeffree Star. The other one we are going to be reviewing is the James Charles x Morphe Mini Palette. Alright, so the reason why I'm reviewing these two are because they are both considered mini palettes and they both are being sold at Morphe, so I thought they'd be two really great palettes to put head to head. So yeah, we're going to be reviewing them and I'm going to tell you guys the true tea on how I feel about each palette and whether or not I think one is better than the other. So let's get started! On one side of my face, I'm going to be using the Shane Dawson palette. The other side of my face, I'm going to be using the James Charles palette. So I'm also going to be using some eyeshadows as highlighter because I feel like my boyfriend's purse right over here could work as a good highlighter, and there are plenty of shades in here that could work as a good highlighter. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go in with my boyfriend's purse with this lovely brush. Most of the brushes that I'm using, not all of them, but most of the brushes that I'm using today are from BH Cosmetics. They have amazing brushes for great prices. So not a promo or anything, but like just saying. A nice like everyday like shimmery highlight shade. Now we're going to go in with the other side. We're going to go in with the James Charles palette. And we're going to go in with this shade right here. Ooh. Whoa. I hate to say it, but for a highlight shade, the James Charles palette works way better. So now that I've gotten my face makeup done, I want to start talking about the packaging of each palette and which packaging I like better, etc, etc, etc. So the packaging of this one is very nice. Right when I opened it up, I'm going to show you guys actually the box that it came in because I still have that. Well, I mean, look at this. Like, hello. And it feels really nice. So the packaging is nice. Once I opened this palette up, I was like, wow, look at that like holographic like shininess to it. It's so super cool. And then also another thing that makes it feel more expensive when it comes to the packaging is the raised letters here. When you feel it, you can feel the letters and it feels really super nice, and they kind of are popped up above the surface. So that's super nice. And the packaging overall on the outside is gorgeous in this palette. Another thing that I really like about it is that there is a mirror, so that's super nice. And then you can see you have like two logos here, and then you get the inside of the palette. One thing I really, really enjoy about this palette is you have shade names for every single shade, and that is super nice. Another thing that's really cool is there's different prints on each shadow, as you can see. Next, I'm going to talk about the James Charles palette. Now, this specific palette got a lot of backlash because it's obviously a smaller version of the bigger palette that came out last year. And all I can say is if you have the big palette, I can totally see why you'd be mad about this palette, because this palette is kind of a better version of the old palette. The packaging's super nice and sleek. It's like a black packaging, and it also has like this really cool like shiny lettering on it that says James Charles on it, x Morphe, or Morphe x James Charles on it. Then you go on the inside and you have a mirror, which is something that the big palette did not have. You also have all your shadows nicely laid out here. One thing I do not like about the packaging of this palette is the fact that there are no shade names on the shadows. And I personally am not a big fan of that because I don't like having to keep that plastic sheet in order to know what shade I'm using. But yeah, that's basically what I think about the packaging. There's not too much. I like the fact that it's nice and compact. One thing I wouldn't have liked about if I got the bigger palette of this, I probably wouldn't have liked how big it is. And so, yeah, honestly, it really does stink if you have the big palette because a better version came out. And if you don't have the big palette, I totally recommend getting the smaller palette just because it's basically a better version of the big palette. But I totally can see why so much backlash is being put on this palette because I would be mad too. And it's, you know, really annoying. I would be super mad hearing that this palette came out. So yeah. So the next thing I'm going to be testing out is eyeshadow. Do they have a lot of fallout? Do they have pigment? Are these shadows wearable? Is this something that I would wear on an everyday basis? I'm going to try to compare some shades that are in this palette that are also in the James Charles palette. We will determine which ones are better. So we're going to look at pigmentation first off. Overall, when it comes to the shadows themselves, it's really a 50-50 because, for example, like my boyfriend's purse compared to that shimmery metallic in the James Charles palette, like the James Charles palette totally won on that. But when it comes to some of the matte shades, I'd have to say that the Shane Dawson palette won, especially for the colorful matte shades. Like the browns, they were fine. Like the neutral shades that were matte, the James Charles palette and the Shane Dawson palette worked basically the same. But when it comes to those matte colorful shades, I think the Shane Dawson won when it came to those. So this one, when it comes to swatching, I'm gonna have to say that this is like a 50-50 thing. It depends on what kind of palette you're looking for. So let me get these swatches off of me so that way we can start doing an eyeshadow look. Okay, that took a long time. That was literally 17 minutes to swatch all those shades. So I'm gonna try to create a similar eyeshadow look with the Shane Dawson palette on this side and then the James Charles palette on that side. And we're gonna do a purple eyeshadow look because I'm obsessed with purple. So, let's get started. So the first shade I'm gonna go in with is Cry on My Couch. This is a perfect all over matte shade. Now that I'm going into my brush, you guys are going to see one of my least favorite things about this palette, the Shane Dawson palette, is the fact that there's a lot of fallout. I'm just gonna show you guys. These are good brushes here. If you can see, there's just a lot of fallout. And just to show you, do you see that? That's insane. But with me, I'm okay with a lot of fallout as long as it doesn't fall out on the face and as long as the shadow is still pigmented. Like, I don't know if you guys can see the coverage it already has, like, on my brow. Like, it's insane. We're now going to go in with this shade in the James Charles palette right here. So that is this lovely shade right here. So we're going in pretty dark. We are starting off very dark. This particular shade does not have a lot of fallout, which makes me happy. And this one, you can just see the amount of pigment that I'm getting on this brush. It's insane. Okay, so now we're gonna go in with this shade right over here from the James Charles palette. Okay, these are completely different purples. I'm trying to think of how I can mix them to make them a little bit the same. I think I might go in with a little bit of this and that shade, and that might kind of, yeah, there we go. Wow. This particular side took a little bit more to build up, but this one is insanely pigmented. My apology, we're actually gonna use this to deepen up our look, which is something I typically would not use to deepen up the look, but we're gonna do it because we wanna make this look deeper. This shade right here, which is a little bit different of a shade, it's a little more red, but we're gonna use it. Next, I'm going to do a cut crease. We are going to go in right with the shade right here, which is Exposed. Wow. Exposed is literally my favorite shade in this whole entire palette. I will use Exposed so much. We are going to go in with a little bit of this pink shade, and I'm gonna mix it a little bit with this purple, just a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit different of a shade, obviously, because it's pink compared to like a violet, but it's similar enough. I'm going to finish it off by going in with our shimmery shade right here. So my boyfriend's purse, we're gonna put that in the inner corner. Next, we're gonna go in with that shade over here, right in here. Put that in our inner corner. Finishing off by putting some liner, some lashes on, really finish this look up. And I'm also gonna put a lip on. So I'll be right back with you guys. I apologize, guys, further in advance. This next clip was me attempting to make a lovely video montage of how my makeup look turned out, but instead I end up looking really awkward and weird. I was trying to be like a normal beauty guru and do that nice, lovely montage that they all do when they're done with their makeup looks, but instead I look like a weirdo. But I'll still insert it anyways because I think it's kind of funny. Alright, so these are the finished looks that I've completed with both eyeshadows. Can't even talk. But honestly, they look really pretty. Both of them are gorgeous and they kind of look exactly the same. So in the end, I was able to create the same exact look. There's not one that's noticeably, oh my gosh, worse than the other. And I think they created really, really good looks and they look really pretty. Like, I'm loving this eyeshadow. It's super, super pretty. Purple is one of my favorite types of eyeshadow looks to create, so I'm loving it, so yeah. So as for which palette I think is better, so honestly, both palettes have pros and cons, and it depends on what palette you are looking for. And honestly, if you can get both, I would, because they're completely different palettes. I'd use them for different reasons. So I'm gonna go through just briefly and tell you guys what I like about each palette and what I dislike about each palette. So, the Controversy palette, this one is amazing. The packaging is really nice. I like that they all have shades on them, and it's super, super nice. One thing I don't like about it is that there's a lot of fallout. There's a little too much fallout. It gets a little bit annoying after a while, but in the end, you end up creating a really pretty look, and the shades are super pigmented. So this is super nice. And another thing is the shades are unique. These are not shades that you find in an everyday palette, especially Flat Earth and Exposed. Those two shades are shades that I know I'll be using a lot in the future, and they're also shades that it's really hard to find in other palettes. Big thing that's, I guess, bad about this palette is that it stinks if you have the big palette, because obviously, you know, you bought the big palette for more money and then a smaller, better version came out. That's super annoying. So that's one thing I don't like about the palette. Another thing I don't like about the palette is the fact that there are no shade names in here. That's super annoying. But I love the fact that you can create basically any look with this palette, and also it's more compact than the old one. There's a mirror in it. But yeah, that's what I dislike and like about this palette. I love each of these palettes practically equally, but if I had to choose one, the palette I would choose is the Mini Controversy palette, mainly just because Shane Dawson made it. I know how much hard time and effort he put into this palette after watching the series, and not to mention, and also Jeffree Star as well. And also, as I said, the thing that I really like about this palette is that there are shades that you do not find in most palettes. Some of these shades are shades that you're not gonna find in a lot of palettes, and it gives you something new to try out. And that's what I really like about this palette. And I also like it because it's nice and compact, it's cute, it's mini. Despite all the fallout, it is very pigmented. So yeah, and this one still just as good. It's just if I had to choose which one would I buy, I don't know, it's really hard, because I honestly, if you can, buy both, because they're both amazing palettes. But yeah, that's my end review on these palettes. I hope you enjoyed me spilling the coffee. Spilling the coffee. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you all next time. Bye!